I want to talk to you guys a little bit about Tarkir Dragonstorm. So the set has officially been released for about a week now at the time I'm recording this video. Technically, it's been available for a couple weeks because stores can sell it early if you're doing like pre-releases and whatnot. So I think we have a pretty good idea of sort of where prices are going to settle and where they're going to be at least for the short term, maybe over the next couple months. And I think that's probably a good launching point to maybe start talking about some of the cards in it. Now, if you guys watch my previous videos, you know I'm pretty excited as a whole about this set and kind of what it brings to multiple formats. I haven't had a chance to dig too much into Standard yet to see what type of impact it's having or expected to have, but I am planning on getting back into Standard pretty soon, so I'm hoping to maybe integrate a little bit more coverage of that as I do, and maybe get a better sense of what exactly we're looking at with these types of things. That being said, I want to talk about some of the cards that I think are kind of undervalued, and then some that I think might be a little overvalued, and maybe just like a bit of a market recap, if you will, for some of this stuff. Starting us off with Mistrise Village. So this card has actually been really interesting to me, and we covered it when it was announced before it actually came out. It's holding its value a little bit better than I expected it to, especially for a card that is, in my opinion, decent, but not necessarily the greatest thing ever. Mistrise Village is around $18 for the normal and around $33 for the foil. I'm just using the median prices here, market price, whatever, for the purpose of the video. Obviously, they're probably available, you know, a couple bucks lower, 16 and change, whatever. But, you know, they're close enough that we can at least get a sense of it. Mistrise Village is obviously interesting in Commander with a lot of really strong cards. It does give you the ability to ensure that the cards you need to get through. And obviously, if you're playing Mountains or Forest, you don't have to worry about it entering tap. So, you know, it's not functioning so much as a land because you do have to pay a blue in order to be able to give that spell protection. But if you're playing against a problematic board and you've got a board wipe or other things and you need to make sure it gets through, obviously I can see where the card is strong there. In Standard, like I said, I'm not super familiar right now with the current format. I played a bit during Bloomburrow, a little bit during Duskmorn, and then I kind of took a pause. So I'm not up to speed with what's going on, but I have to imagine there's some application in other formats, especially those that are counter heavy. So in terms of this card's like long-term, you know, performance, I suppose, if you look at the chart, it's kind of interesting because it's gone down pretty significantly, then back up, then down again, but now it's slowly starting to trend back up. I think in terms of value, the borderless one will likely do the best over time, but right now it does look like it's at a relatively low point. We could probably look at this in like a month or two and see kind of it may be $3 to $5 cheaper than where it is right now. But I think it's probably a safe indication of where it's going to be, especially because it is a card that, you know, much like Cavern of Souls, but obviously not as generically good, things that give counter protection are generally considered very strong, especially in Commander, depending on where this card kind of falls out otherwise. Now, Cory Cutter is probably the biggest surprise of this format. If you look at the chart, it's just a crazy percentage rise here for this card. At the cheapest, it's about, we'll call it $14, and then around $15 for the foil. I'm guessing this is because of Standard. If you read it, it's 1 in a red artifact equipment that gives the equipped creature +1/+1 in haste and trample. Then it has Flurry. It says whenever you cast your second spell each turn, create a 1/1 white monk creature token with prowess. You may attach this equipment to it. So it's really strong on paper, I feel like, especially in a constructed format. So that's my guess. Mono red is always very strong in Standard. Boros, Mice was very strong for a while. That's probably what's causing the biggest value jump on this, I would guess. But feel free to let me know in the comments if you think I'm wrong on that. We've got the other version of Cory Cutter, which is about $15, so it's only $1 or so more. You can kind of take your pick in what you like. I think a lot of people kind of start to gravitate towards some of the regular arts, with some exceptions. So, you know, in terms of your average player, there may actually be more people who want the just kind of the basic one if you don't like that special artwork. But it's a really interesting card that has a lot to offer, especially in Standard or other, you know, quicker formats. But realistically speaking, even in Commander, it's not the worst card I've ever seen, you know, for the purpose of doing a lot for relatively little, especially because you can equip it to the monk for free. But it's been performing very, very high. It started out at a pre-sale price of, what did it go down to like 3 and change? And it has completely skyrocketed up there. So if that's on your radar, definitely might not be the best time to buy, but I also don't know. I don't see it going super high again, but it's still soaring. It may end up rising a little bit more depending on the type of play that it sees. But again, like I said, this is one I haven't been able to kind of research enough to understand the application. I'm guessing though that it's Standard and other constructed formats. Now, Ugin, Eye of the Storms, I've played against this card on Arena a couple of times already, and holy shit, is it really, really strong. It reads strong on paper, obviously, being able to exile stuff, and I played against a colorless commander deck that was using this in Brawl, and just every time they're casting low-cost stuff, and you're just able to remove it. This is obviously, like, super strong for, like, Eldrazi as well, and it's an Ugin that is just obviously only has the one, set release. So that alone will do something for its value. You will notice he has trended downwards. He's around $50 at the cheapest right now. I just don't see a scenario where he goes too much cheaper. But looking at, the pre-release version's obviously a lot stronger, which you kind of expect. And doing a little bit of live editing here. I didn't think to pull up the other one, but I didn't really like that, did it? He does have some other variants as well, including this double-sided borderless, where he's him as a baby and then as an adult. This is a bit more expensive, and then there's of course the showcase. There's the Ghostfire. All of those things mean good things for the base version of the card, hopefully. But as long as it's seeing a lot of play and is as strong as it is, I don't know how much lower the base is really going to go. I don't have this card yet. I'm contemplating buying it, but I'm also trying to decide if I want to wait and see if it does drop a little bit as we get further into the set's release. With Final Fantasy coming out next and Eye of Eternity, Edge of Eternities and all that, there's a good possibility that people's attention gets diverted elsewhere and some things do drop. So, mindful of that. One card I don't think is going to drop much is Craterhoof Behemoth, and I wanted to talk about this card because it has obviously, if you know Craterhoof, like it's been like a $30+ card for the most part. Even when it does get reprinted, it ends up going back up. The lowest this card was around $15, and it's still kind of hovering around there. We'll call it 16. And then 18 for the foil. Now, some people may like the original artwork better, but here's what I'm going to tell you about Craterhoof, all right? This is not meant to be financial advice, but I will tell you, if you want a Craterhoof or intend on playing a Craterhoof in something, now is probably the best time to buy. And I'm not just saying that. I bought one recently. I got one at $13.95 last Friday on release day, and I've just seen this trend happen so many times when they do reprint a card in whether it's in standard or otherwise, that it hits a bottom out point and then just starts to go back up. Every other version of Craterhoof has done this, and there's no reason to think that this will not follow suit, even if it does take a little while. There is the special, art version of it, which is, 18 and then 20 for the foil, so it's about a $4 to $5 premium, we'll call it, which I don't really love the artwork on this too much, but, it's a matter of preference. My point here is this is a cheap Craterhoof. This is a card that can quite literally be a win condition for a lot of decks, especially in Commander, and this is kind of, I think, the best time to buy this card if you do not have one and you want one. And realistically speaking, I think as a result of his release, some of the other Craterhoofs are a little bit more affordable. Around $25 for the Modern Masters one. 20 for the Innistrad Remastered. The thing is, Innistrad Remastered did just reprint this in retro frame, so these back-to-back reprints are obviously doing a lot to keep its price lower right now. But again, it was in Commander Masters, and if you look at the chart for Commander Masters when it came out, it dropped, and then it went up, and now it's falling out a little bit. But even then, near mint, around 23, I just think that now is the time to buy on Craterhoof, because it's not like he's going to be any less playable in 5-6 months, but he very well will go back up to where he was before. And one other card I think is a really good speculation card that I'm not sure enough people are looking at is Nature's Rhythm. Now, another card that I bought, it's a slightly less good Green Sun Zenith, but it does have the ability to activate from the grave with Harmonize. So it's basically X and 2 green, search your library for a creature with mana value X or less, put it onto the battlefield and shuffle. Nothing crazy in terms of what it does, but it's extremely good. It obviously can get Craterhoof out of the deck. But the Harmonize ability here is what is just insane, because of course Harmonize says tap a creature with power, X, and then it reduces the cost by X. So you can kind of double up on this card's effect. This is $2.20 plus shipping, and then if you look at the regular version of it, if that's more your preference, it's the same price. This card, it's extremely, extremely good. And I think it's going to be a card that is a somewhat budget alternative to Green Sun Zenith, especially because Green Sun Zenith, last I checked, I should have probably had these pulled up before, but you guys have been watching the channel to know long enough that look, Green Sun Zenith, every copy of it, even the one you can't see on the screen right now, which is the Double Masters at 30 plus, it's just this card came off the list and in Modern, I think it was, and just all of a sudden exploded in price. And so this card has priced out some people who didn't have it already. Nature's Rhythm is good. It's not as good, but it's definitely a good alternative, and I think it's extremely cheap. So if you play decks that want to be able to get big stuff from the deck, you can do a lot worse than this. And I think as a long-term hold, this is going to be a really good card. I'm not saying go buy a bunch with the intent of making money off of it. I'm saying if it's a card you foresee yourself playing, now is probably going to be the best bottom out point for it. One other card I think is similar there is Herd Heirloom, and this is a mana rock that taps for, it only costs 2 to play. Add 1 mana of any color, spend it only to cast a creature spell, and then you can tap it to give a creature you control with power 4 or greater trample, and then allow you to draw a card when it deals combat damage. Just solid in general, right? A 2 mana that can tap for mana, especially in standard and stuff. A lot of the cards we see do that come out in standard are 3 costs to do that. This is limited to creature spells, but there are certainly decks that are going to be able to take advantage of that if you're able to play a heavy number of creatures. And then kind of later in the game, you can turn those creatures into stompy cards there. And again, this is around $2 at the cheapest. It does have a alternate art that I think looks absolutely gorgeous. This is around $3.35, $5 for the foil. You know, if you're asking my opinion on which one's probably going to be the best over time, just get the foil borderless at $5. But if you're asking my opinion on just like the card in general, I do think, you know, you see it hit a bottom out point of $1. You're looking at the graph, it does start to traject, kind of move up. And I think this card in general is just something to keep an eye on. It's not the greatest card ever printed by any stretch of the imagination, but it's also certainly not the worst. A couple other things I wanted to just mention here. Clarion Conqueror is an interesting card. Flying, activated abilities of artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers can't be activated. You're probably not going to be anyone's best friend playing this card, but I can see both as a dragon and as a low-cost option for decks that want to shut things off. There may be some interest there. It's only like 3 and change for the borderless, and I think there's actually some, well, after tax it's going to be like 3 and change. I have a couple, I think I have a foil one too. Just low-end, inexpensive, but with an effect that could very well be good over time. A lot of that stuff in this set, if you look around and just kind of see stuff that even if you might have an interest for it for yourself, could definitely start to go up a little bit later. The other thing I just wanted to touch on quickly are these lands, these Dragon Islands. This is absolutely insane. Look at the graph, but this card for the regular one is 10, and then the foil is 17. And for the swamp, it's right around the same, a little less, but like, so we'll call it $7 and then 14 for the foil for lands. Now, these are only in collector boosters, and they are not guaranteed in collector boosters. I had a buddy who opened some boxes and only got 2. I've seen a few more, but I mean, generally speaking, they're not easy to come by. They're very popular and they look incredible. I would not recommend buying these right now by any stretch, but I have to say they are selling like hotcakes, and the value is insane on these. If you have them, definitely be sure you keep in mind that they are not bulk or even what we would call filler basic lands. A lot of times you get these cool basic lands like the ones Dominaria United or whatever, where it's like these look really cool. They're $1 or $2. These are higher value than some of the mythics in the set. So kind of crazy there for that. On the commander side of things, though, this interesting pricing models going on here. We know the Sultai deck and the Temur deck are both, we're just going to call it 75 for the sake of video. Temur was actually higher last week. What I didn't notice was the Abzan deck is also up to 60 plus. I got mine on Amazon. I think it was $44.99 plus tax. As we see, the Mardu and the Jeskai ones, you guys can't see the Mardu, but it's 45-ish. And then the Jeskai one is 29. Pretty good value if you like that color combination, I suppose. But Ureni of the Unwritten is one of the big movers in this set, and part of the reason the Temur deck is so expensive. We'll just call it $25 for a face commander is kind of nuts. And then you've also got Goldlust Triad, which is in that deck too. I think there's some really good cards here, in addition to some reprints, obviously, like Seedborn Muse and some of the other cards that we talked about. Skull Clamp is always going to be good, Command Beacon, whatever. But the commander side of things is very, very interesting. I haven't seen any commander decks in the wild at Target or anything yet, though I did see packs, so clearly people are aware of these prices. I mean, don't panic buy over MSRP. They did say that they are going to be re-waiving more of the commander decks in May to June, so maybe just wait a little bit, save yourself some money. Or if you want the Jeskai one, it's actually going to be cheaper than buying it at the store. So, but I mean, the ones that are higher up, I would not go crazy with, just because, like, they're probably going to appear back on shelves, and the hype around them right now is kind of insane. So, yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. More so just generally, just kind of talking about the set. There are some things I'd buy and have bought. There are just some things I would avoid, for sure, and wait on. And I think that's kind of, the general nature of this. But by all accounts, this set is very well liked, and there seems to be a little bit for everybody. So let me know what you guys think of the kind of pricing market of the set as a whole, if there's anything you've bought or are thinking about buying. And as always, I'll catch you guys in the next video.